Man, it's so wild to me because I just keep doing these and I just keep meeting new people. And I'm very excited to meet you. I'm seeing your face for the first time. We spoke the other day. But I don't know anything about you. I always tell people the context, and there is none. Mariah, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And just in case anyone's watching it, I want to clear it up. If they're as dumb as I am, if they're looking at your beautiful face, yeah, exactly. There's another side to that headphone. Okay. When we first started talking, she kind of had it tucked. I thought she had a cool new thing. I was wrong. Mariah, where are you from? Let's start there.
I'm from Long Island, New York, like right in the middle of the island.
Very good. Yeah. About how far out of the city are you growing up?
It's probably like an hour and 10 train ride. But if you're driving, that's a whole different story. Depends on what time of day you leave. Depends on if it's a holiday weekend, all that horrible traffic stuff.
So born and raised New York?
Yeah, born and raised on Long Island. The only time that I left was for school. Yeah. And
are you back in New York now?
I am. Yeah. So I graduated in 2019 and my genius idea was to move back to Long Island, take the train in and out of the city to do my auditioning and whatever. And then 2019 went into 2020 and I never left. So the commuter life is very real for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Have you ever, I'm curious, like now I'm questioning what order I want to ask these questions. Okay, I made my mind up. I love it because I get overloaded. I have so many things already. Let's start with, I've lived in New York myself. I lived there when I was in high school in the city, and then several times later in my 20s. And I think it's a very particular place, obviously. And the people who are from there, I find a lot of things oftentimes in common. One of them being that more so than a lot of other places I've ever been, there's like this unconscious, take it for granted assumption that you're not going to leave. Like, why would you leave? Why would you live anywhere else ever? Like, they don't even, it's not, should I live somewhere else? No, it's, wait, why are you asking me that question? In what world would I leave? And there's people like that everywhere. Honestly, there are people who are the smallest town in the world. They're like, why would I ever leave here? It's all my family. But man, New Yorkers, there's a lot of New Yorkers who just assume they're always going to live there. And I'm curious if you're one of those people.
Kind of. I feel like New Yorkers we have a bad rap about being rude and all this, but
Direct.
I think there is, yeah, that's it. I think there's a grain of truth in it. I mean, that's why it's such a common thought that we sort of have a superiority complex. Like we think we're in the greatest city in the world.
You already made it to the top of the mountain. Who goes down the mountain?
Right. But actually, as I've gotten older and, paying my own bills and all of that, the idea of leaving feels maybe a little bit more tangible just because the cost of living here is so high. But it also feels very down the line. Like, well, maybe we'll leave. Maybe we'll move away. But we don't have any pressing plans. So
you say we. Who are you speaking for?
I'm married. So my husband and I,
So am I. Wonderful. How long have you been married?
We got married June 2022. So it's like a year and a half.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
Wonderful. And what does your husband do?
He is a marine mechanic, so he works on boat engines primarily. Yeah.
That is some like manly, nerdy shit.
Yeah.
Boat engines?
Right. He comes home covered in like oil and grease every day.
Is that like super hot for you? Do you like the burly fella vibe of I've been working on machines all day with my hands?
He's kind of a funny duck because he's very obviously.
I like the phrase. Please tell me why your husband is kind of a funny duck. Go on.
He's working with his hands, but he's also super creative and artistic.
Cool.
And so he has sort of like the tough guy, manly man thing going, but he's also a huge nerd. And he's a musician. He acted and did plays when he was growing up. So it's like half and half.
It's wild. That dynamic doesn't even blow my mind, because what you're describing is like exactly my stepdad. When I was growing up, my stepdad was a mechanic, like auto mechanic, grease all the way up to his arms all day. And then he would come home and paint.
Mm-hmm.
Like he would paint and draw and like do all this nerdy shit and read like comic books. And he was a dude that if you ran into him on the street, especially with his like regular disposition, you'd be like, oh shit, like, don't piss that guy off. But then you get home and he's like, I drew this dragon. And you're like, oh my God, what a switch.
Yeah.
Those are cool dudes. Those are cool dudes. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir, but.
Yeah. And Kyle, so my husband's name is Kyle. He's also like 6'1". So he's like a full foot taller than
How tall
me.
are you? Yeah,
I'm
there
like
you go.
5'1", 5'2".
You got it, but you have to stop perpetuating this, because too many people out there have this expectation that they're going to find what you found. They're going to get to be a foot shorter than their fella. And that is just not life, ladies. If you're listening, it's just not life.
It's not real.
No.
Yeah.
Exception proves the rule. But lucky you. Okay. So, all right, let's back up a little bit. So you're growing up in Long Island. Talk about the family a little bit. Give me, what are people leaving every day to go to do for work?
Okay.
And are there siblings? Those are my two next ones.
Okay. So, there are 3 siblings. I have 3 older brothers.
Oh shit.
Mm-hmm. I'm one of 4.
Do you feel like so safe growing up? Like, who's going to mess with you? You got 3 older brothers. There's bound to be one of them who's a tough guy. Oh,
yeah. The middle one is the tough guy.
There you go.
Yeah. In terms of like, no one on the outside could ever touch me, but my brothers.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
When I was little, tortured.
It could go either way, right? Because I would think in my head, what's the gap between you and the youngest brother? Age?
Like 3.5 years. Like I was a freshman in high school and he was a senior.
And they were already out of high school.
The oldest 2 were way out.
Yeah. Right. Got it. Okay. And how old is your oldest brother? Like
he's
in comparison to you?
Older.
10 years older than you. Mm-hmm. Wow. So that's really interesting. That's like a real decades long pregnancy, kind of with some gaps, really.
Yeah. So
you're constantly in that for a long time. Your family is the reason why a lot of women are like, I want to have them back to back, as hard as that is, because I don't want to stretch it out for like 10 fucking years.
Yeah. So the oldest 2 are very close in age, and then the youngest of the 3 and I are kind of close in age. And I don't want it to sound like, right. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't want it to sound like they were mean to me or anything, but there was definitely a level. Well, the youngest one and I were like best buds growing up. Like we played together all the time.
Oh, dope. That's cool.
But there was definitely a level where like we had a pet dog and like they took the dog out of the crate and put me in the crate, that kind of thing. Or like I was out in my baby swing.
That's some typical little kid messing with the little kid shit. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully not like overnight.
Sibling kind of stuff.
Wonderful. Yeah. It's pretty typical. Okay. Yeah. But overall, the family unit is like getting along. You guys are all like, pretty tight, or people screaming all the time, or you're hanging out on the holidays. Like, aren't we glad to have each other?
Yeah. Everyone is pretty tight, I would say. Yeah.
That's dope. That's wonderful.
I'm excited for everyone to be up for, I'm going to my in-laws for Thanksgiving, but my whole family is coming up for Christmas, and pretty pumped to have everyone together. So,
where is everybody now? They're all spread out?
A little bit. 2 out of 3 brothers are still on the island, and one with his family, he has 3 little girls, is in Florida. So
that's far.
Yeah, he's coming.
But it's also like this weird, they really need to like create some sort of a, I don't know, like a time warp or some sort of wormhole. New York and Florida are too far away from each other for how connected they are in spirit and like families. It's wild. It's like, I don't know if there's any 2 other states. Yeah. I don't know if there's any other two states that have quite that relationship where it's like they're that far apart, but the travel must be insane. Us in Nevada, maybe. I live in California just because of Vegas. It's because of Vegas feels like it's in California, but it isn't. Yeah, that's wild. What do your folks do? Did or do? Both are good answers.
My mom was a nurse for like 35 years.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, so she's not actively working now, but she definitely stays busy.
She put her time in. If she was retired altogether, I'd be like, God bless, you know?
Yeah. And then my dad owns his own business, and he is a marine contractor. So he both builds like docks and bulkheads, which are like those walls, like retaining walls for water. And then he also drops and pulls moorings, which are like the little, I don't know, balls that float in the water that boats hook up to.
When did you meet your husband?
I've known him since we were probably like 5 and 6.
Is it related in any way? Because this is weird. Yes. There had to have been a moment when this connected. Either it's how you met him, or at some point you came home and were like, Dad, you're never going to fucking believe this.
Yeah. So we met through church as little kids. But my dad got my husband his first job as like a dockhand at a marina. Yeah.
That's amazing. So so Kyle is kind of like son 4.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. He's best friends with my one brother. So
how old is Kyle in comparison to you? Is he like your brother's age?
He's a year older than me. So
okay. So he's in between okay, got it.
Yeah, exactly.
So he really just filled in that last little slot with another fella, as if you didn't already have enough older men in your life.
Right.
Now there's this other tall boat guy you got to have around all the time.
Yeah.
But you seem very happy with this. That's wonderful. So how do you end up in North Carolina? Why not, stay in the city for the rest of your life forever?
Yeah. So, the college like search process, I kind of felt a little bit on my own. I went to like normal public high school, and they kind of didn't know what to do with me because I was like, I'm going to go and dance in school. And they were like, don't really know how to help you. So I was doing the only
path in Texas public high school like that anyone knows how to give you is go somewhere and get a bachelor's degree in fine arts and theater. Not acting, not a specialty, just theater, and then come back and teach high school. That's the fucking only thing anyone knows how to do. No one tells you like LA or New York or Chicago, but nothing. There's none of that. I went to 2 different public high schools and like in Texas and have known countless people. Unless you have this weird person that like knows that you can go to like a school of the arts or a Juilliard or a thing and is like, hey, unified auditions, or hey, go to the school in February, whatever the thing. Some places it's wild to me that they just don't know, and you can be good and they don't know what to do with you.
Yeah. So I actually had an art teacher who I'm still in contact with, and she helped me a bit, just because she had more of a finger on the pulse of like what was going on in the arts world, but primarily with like visual arts and like photography and stuff. But so I was just like looking up online, like best dance schools, best dance colleges. And one day I like just stumbled across NCSA, and I remember like talking to my dance teacher about it, and she's like, oh yeah, I've heard of that one. And I was like, cool. So I'm going to go there. I don't know. So I would definitely say that it was
how many like places did you audition for?
Probably like 5.
How many did you get into?
I think like 4 out of 5, because I ended up not going to one of the auditions actually. There was like a horrible snowstorm and we got snowed in, and I missed the weekend, and I was like, yeah, I think I just don't want to go there at all.
Yeah. So, sometimes luck of the draw, maybe a sign going on there from somebody. So how many of the other places you got into, are they as far away as North Carolina?
No, they're all pretty local. And I really
what the hell what are you doing? Why are you going there? It's so
You
far
know,
away, and it's away from everything you know and understand, and it's weird.
yeah.
There's nothing there.
Well, I will say, to the credit of that art teacher, I looked at a lot of schools that were in the city. Like I looked at Marymount,
Like,
I
of
looked at
course. Why wouldn't
NYU,
you?
I looked at Juilliard, like all of these
Yes,
things. And they're all very expensive. So that was one thing.
that's
But
true.
he
But
was an
you're out of
advocate.
state. So going to North Carolina is like, yeah, it's a less than NYU, but it's not
Right.
cheap.
Right. Yeah. So that one art teacher was a really big advocate for the idea that those schools will advertise like, oh, this city is your campus. And she's like, you have your whole life to do that. You only get this 4-year gap in your life where you get to go and be on a campus with other people and like just focus on that. And I was like, you're right. And
That
the
very much
city
appealed to
overwhelmed
you.
me when I was younger, for sure. I was like super anxious traveling in and out by myself. So just having to worry about like walking from my dorm to my dance studio was super. And it was such a blessing to be on campus because, and you guys have talked about this on the podcast before, but to be on a campus with other artists and like we're all hyper focused on slightly different things, but like we have the same kind of drive inside was, yeah, like magic.
Yeah,
So.
it's a very, very special place in that way. And I mean, obviously I'm being a little sardonic and leading you on these questions because I'm very glad that you went to school in North Carolina. And I think in general, I'm one of those people that I just advocate for travel throughout your life. Like I think it's important to live in different places and do different things. I have lived in, like, as I mentioned, I've lived in New York, and I totally understand how one could feel like that's the mountaintop, like, and that's where it's all happening, and that's why would you leave there if that's where the thing is. And I think I agree a little bit. I agree, and I agree a little bit about LA too. I think they're both kind of like that, and that's why people often, we've talked about it, my wife and I, because we both kind of at the moment are at the luxury of working remotely, and so we've talked like maybe we go somewhere less expensive while we're doing this remote work, and just if only for the sake of like saving some money for a little while. But her family's here, so it's kind of the same way with you in Long Island, where it's like, you don't want to be too far away from everybody, depending on what you got going on. And you guys are newlyweds, and I don't know if you have plans for kids or not, but if you do, obviously that's like a tremendous thing to have your family close for that, not just for like sentimental reasons, but logistical reasons. It's good to have your family around for that.
Yeah.
The ability to go out, people often mention about, it's like also emergencies, I mean, it's just good to have support. Kid gets sick and you're sad. Don't you want your mom to fucking come over? Like it's definitely, I understand that. But your art teacher was smart to push you when you're young to try new things and experiment. And I also think, based on what I've learned about you so far, I think even though it is very different, I can totally understand why North Carolina would feel very comfortable to you.
Yeah.
Like in a good way.
Yeah, it was comfortable, I would say. I mean, there was, when I first moved down, like freshman year, I remember in that first semester kind of being like, no one gets me. Like, I don't know. I'm like cracking jokes and like being sarcastic, and no one's like, I don't know, we're not vibing or like clicking the way that I expected. But yeah, I fell into like a very comfortable rhythm after a certain point down there. So, people started thinking I was from North Carolina too, or like from the South.
So let me ask this next question. How long have you not sounded like you're from Long Island?
I never had a super strong accent to begin with, but freshman year, I was not in a mean way, but I was kind of made fun of or like mercilessly jabbed at for water, dog, walk. So, I sort of lost my accent at some point in there, and it never came back. Although when I drive, if I get really frustrated, it comes out with a vengeance.
I think one of the things that, and I have talked about this on the podcast relentlessly. First of all, I am I would put in like maybe the top 10 things about human existence that I find fascinating are voices, the way our voices work, the way we choose to say certain words, accents, dialects, all that stuff. So one of my favorite parts about the drama school was we get to take all these dialect classes.
Yeah.
And so I have had a huge evolution in my feelings on this. And first of all, I hate for real that you ever felt like you had to sound different for any reason. It happens to lots of people. Yeah. One of the reasons why I don't sound like I'm from Texas is because when I was really little, my mom was like, don't sound like you're from Texas. That's not the move. Like she would try to train it out of me to make sure that I didn't sound like I was from the South because she thought it would work against me in my life. She didn't want me to have a Southern accent. So I would spend time not around the people in our family who had like the thickest accents. And when we left, we would make fun of them. My mom would lead the charge, and not in a mean way, like, don't they sound dumb? Fuck those people. Like, not nasty.
No,
but they'd be like, yeah, you know how your grandma's like, like, absolutely. Yeah. And to this day, they still give my grandma a hard time for the fact that she says, like, wash the car. And it's like all of these little things that I'm never going to affect in a big way. But I do, in a small ways, mention it because it's trickled down from all of my experiences in this area. I am all about the celebration of saying shit differently. There is no wrong way. In the drama school, Mary Irwin used to tell us, we use the word accent and dialect, but truthfully, no one really has an accent because that's a comment on the fact that it's different than yours.
Right.
And that makes there's kind of an arrogance built into that of like, I'm doing it right. And they have an accented version. What it's like, no, everyone just has a voice.
Right.
That's what it is. And this person's voice sounds like that. And this one sounds like that. And he says it water and he says water and he says whatever. Like I have not always felt this way, but I feel it so strongly now because I also believe in like people give Ryan Gosling a hard time for being like from Canada. And then he has like this, like, you know, in interviews, he'd be like, have this almost like New York accent. And like, you know, it's like, you're not fucking from, but he spent his whole life changing his voice all the time on purpose. So have I. I sound however the fuck I want to sound. And I don't excuse it. And I don't care if anyone knows where I'm from or what I pick up a lot of Northeastern shit. I like it. I like the way it fucking sounds. So that's how I talk. And I don't see any problem with that. And I find it fascinating that you're like Long Island for life and you have this like standard American kind of voice. And I wonder, like you said, like when you're driving, it comes out, right? When else? When else are other times that you're like, oh man, I'm like Marissa Tomei over here. I sound like I work at Carlo's Bakery in Hoboken. You know, I'm going full.
It depends. I have some friends that have very thick accents.
And when you chill with them,
if I'm with them, it'll come out. Yeah.
Do you like it? How does it feel for you? Like when you're in it and you notice you're like, your head starting to maybe move a little bit on your neck.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess there is something about it that feels like a little empowering to just like sort of lean into that. Cause like
it is a part of who you are.
Right. And I never had a super pronounced accent to begin with, but there's something about like the New York pride that sort of like bubbles up.
Yeah. So when you're dancing for the most part, and this is one thing I actually didn't look into. Are we talking ballet or we're talking contemporary? At least at school. Okay. Contemporary dance. And I don't want to tell any tales of school here because it's not my thing, but I've been around it for a really long time. And I also work, I don't know if you know, but I worked on a lot of dance TV shows professionally. So I spent a lot of time talking about this shit. And one of the things about contemporary dance that I love is that it really embraces this like no right, no wrong, feel it, just do. If you line it up next to other dance styles, it has far less rules, far less structure. It is far more connected to feeling than maybe any other form of dance, in my opinion. with all of that, I think that's the attitude people should have about their voices and about their English or about their Spanish or about whatever they just language is a means to communicate, right? It's the only reason we have it. We should just say everything the way we want to. There's no right, no wrong. We shouldn't go around correcting people's shit. I think sometimes grammatically, if you're really trying to be clear about something, like, for example, my wife is Korean. She grew up speaking Korean in her house and English. Her Korean is faded. She's very strong in English, but even to this day, because it's her second language, she'll constantly ask me, like, is this right? Like grammatically, is it this, or like when I use in or on? It's little stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
And I love that because I love the English language, and I love figuring that out with her and helping her get it right. But at the end of the day, if she just chooses to say, I don't give a shit, and she says in or on, I know what the fuck she means and I don't care. Yeah, and I wish more people would adopt that mentality, you know? Yeah.
There's definitely something in human nature that has like the in group and the out group, just like you were talking about with like accents. Like I assume that you have an accent because something internal in me says I'm right. I have the right way.
Or at the very least, I am normal. I'm zero. Right. I'm baseline. And you're different.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's something very interesting about all of that. Like the in versus on. Are you standing in line or are you standing on line? That kind of thing.
Where do you land on that one? I'm fascinated. I can guess based on where you're from.
You want to guess first?
No. Well, sure. Why not? Because either way, you're going to tell me the truth. You're not going to lie. People, and I had not heard a lot of this until I lived there, but Northeast is very online. I'm standing online. And my whole life I've insisted, and I'm afraid I do to this day, because of clarity, say whatever you want, but it is not as clear because you aren't on a line.
There's not a line.
It literally doesn't make any sense unless it's painted on the ground. And also in the evolution of this term, unfortunately for your side of this argument, we have developed this other meaning of what it means for a human being to be online.
Yeah. True.
And so now it's like an inline doesn't mean fucking anything except being in a line. I will say I'm a fan of the English version, but I'm not ever going to fucking say it. Like I'll say it right now. Like they say Q, right? I was cued, which solves the whole problem. It eliminates the in-on issue. But I can't say cued. It's too British for me. It feels weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, online, I remember hearing it a lot when I lived in the city. And it was like, it's like hearing like a flat note. You know?
Right.
Like, no.
My roommate, all 4 years of school, this is like one of those stories that we go back to all the time.
Yeah.
We were cleaning our Bailey Street apartment, and
rest in peace.
R.I.P. It was a little gross.
I just went and I saw this new thing and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, I want to go. I think I might go this year.
Go see it. I haven't been inside, but just from the outside, it looks like it looks like one of the most state-of-the-art things on the whole campus. And it's that. It's not the animation building. It's not the like
it's the dorms.
It's crazy. And then it makes the regular dorms look hilarious, like they're there as part of a museum exhibit.
Yeah, they were.
Sorry, go on.
They needed
the
help.
Story from Bailey Street.
Oh, yeah. So we were cleaning the apartment on our like one day off, and she said, "This needs washed." And I was like, "What did you just say?"
Where's this person from?
Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Indiana, Pennsylvania.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. Western Pennsylvania is a very specific group of people.
Yeah. So that's just one example where like I got ribbed for how I said water. But when she said that, I was like, are you okay? What was that?
I will say this, and I'll say this on the record, and I have friends that I love dearly who are in this group of people. And with all due respect, my friends listening to this from Pittsburgh, you guys are fucking banana sandwich. Like the language is bonkers. Yins go there Are you kidding me? What the fuck is that? I'll give you y'all is weird. I'll give you yous is a little weird.
Yeah.
Yins?
Yins.
You guys are cheating. These aren't real words. You're making up other shit.
Yeah.
It's so specific to that area too. No one else talks like that.
No.
I didn't even know about that till I was probably like 25, 26 years old. I'm not joking. I was like grown. And someone said yins.
I just saw, so actually the person I'm talking about, her name is Molly, but she's dating Trent Spivey, who you just, not that you just had him on, but it just released.
Yeah.
So Trent, I just saw her. Yeah, he's great. He's doing such incredible work too.
Yeah, what a sweet boy.
Yeah. Anyway, so I just saw her for another Pickles wedding. And when we were leaving, she's like, you have to watch this YouTube video about like Pittsburgh dads or whatever. And the whole video was just like the accent. And I was like, I have no idea what they're saying or what they're trying to communicate right now.
There's a great, do you know who Nick Kroll is, the comedian and actor?
The name sounds familiar, but I couldn't.
He's really been in a lot of stuff lately, but he used to have a sketch show on Comedy Central that lampooned that whole concept. And they were doing like a Pawn Stars kind of parody. So they're like in Pittsburgh, but they're negotiating in the pawn shop, but in that dialect. And man, it is wild because not only is there a sound change dialect happening, there's such a different vocabulary. Like addition of vocabulary and grammar. It is like a microcosm. And it's weird too, because it's not like it's some fucking island off the coast of it. Like it's in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
But somehow it's this isolated thing.
Right. And it's like a notable city. It's not like, you know, some little tiny.
It's not Omaha. Right. Yeah, 100%. It's so bizarre. And also I think it's interesting that, I mean, obviously we have a much more global kind of information thing going on now, but that I could grow up for like 20 years and never even hear that was a thing. And I watch a lot of movies, TV, music. Like I'm a fairly cultured person and I got to like mid 20s and just didn't, and bananas. But so you are now living back in New York. You've been out of school for a few years and you're very much in Long Island, but commuting. So what are you commuting to do?
Yeah. So I work for a whole bunch of dance companies. So I'm super, super fortunate. And
are we dancing at these dance companies?
Yeah, we're dancing. We're dancing. Yeah. So I work for a whole bunch of different companies. It's all freelance. And I'm contracted to different companies on different projects, but it's a lot of that like jigsaw scheduling where it's like, I'm here from 10 to 2 and then I go here from 3 to 9 or, you know, whatever.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so that's what I'm commuting in and out of the city to do, which is
and you seem very happy with that.
Yeah, I am. I'm really happy. It took a while. I think that's something coming out of school. And I know you guys have talked about this before, but there's like a little, at least when I was at school, there was a little bit of a gap or a disparity between what the expectation for right out of school would look like and what the reality is. Just especially for the dance world in terms of like, you get out of school, you get a company contract and like you're set. And it's like, that's not real.
While you were in school, how many of your friends that graduated did you see that happen to?
I think in terms of the ballet department, that's kind of more realistic. Like ballet company contracts exist where you're like booked for, you know, the whole season or whatever. But in terms of the contemporary world, in my graduating class, I think there was one girl who got a contract like that.
So where does the expectation come from?
I think the company model, when it comes to like modern and contemporary dance, used to exist in that way. And I think a lot of our teachers, while I was there, came from company backgrounds where it was like they had contracts that looked like that, where, you know, that was their employment. But it shifted somewhere along the line where now it's much more a freelance game. And even the people who have company contracts, myself included, so I'm, very fortunate in that way. It's like I have more than one because one is not a full-time job.
Yeah.
There are like very, very few dance companies that can sort of provide in that way. So
how many years were you in North Carolina?
Just the 4 years at school.
So you watched 3 classes of dancers graduate before you.
Oh, yeah. And there were people that graduated ahead of me that got company contracts and stuff. But
how many per class do you think?
Oh, geez.
Like just percentage wise, like ballpark, was it half? Was it less than half?
Less than half.
Less than half. Yeah. But you think that there was, I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. You think you think there was an expectation that you built in your own mind that you would be one of those people?
I think that there was an expectation based off of the way that we were taught in terms of like dance history and dance business, that the ideal was that you would graduate and you would get a company contract and that would be life. And that was it.
Sure. And that happened for some people-ish while you were watching, right?
Yeah.
But not most people.
Right. Right.
So where do you get the expectation that you're going to be one of the few and not one of the many?
Well, especially my senior year, I was really struggling with that. And before,
why wouldn't you?
Right. Everyone was.
Yeah. Hopefully you have some rationale in your head that you're like, these are the numbers. Like you got to know what you're marching towards.
Yeah. Yeah. Before I even went into school, I had like a come to Jesus moment, kind of literally, where I was like, am I crazy? Am I like nuts to be going to school for this? Like this is not like a career that's safe at all. And so, on faith, I went to school and I had a really fantastic experience. But I came back around in senior year and was like, oh no, I might have made a really big mistake here. I might not get a job. And at that point in my life, it was like, if I can't be dancing, I don't know how I'm going to breathe, And so that was like a really panicking place to be.
Why do you think it felt that way? Why did you need dance so vehemently?
I think I started dancing when I was really little, and it was the only thing that I ever said I wanted to do. Like I toyed with the idea of like, oh, maybe I want to pursue English or something, but I never really believed that I wanted to do that. It was like this or nothing all my life. And so I kind of
it was like a truth that you repeated to yourself so many times that it had become immovable.
Right. Yeah. So I came to that crossroads as I was getting ready to graduate where I was like, oh boy, what if this thing that I've built up in my head doesn't happen?
What if you're one of the many and not one of the few?
Yeah. And I had friends too at school who were they really tried to encourage me during that time. They were like, Mariah, you're going to make it. Like, don't freak out. You're going to be okay. And even some of the teachers, because they see it every year where like people start panicking at the end of the year. And I had some of our teachers that also said like, don't freak out. It might be a minute, like you might get out of school and not have something right away, but it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like you'll still wake up and you'll still be breathing every morning, So yeah.
Did that sink in then, or did it take time? Did it help at all?
It helped a little to know. I think I always needed to know that like the teachers or the professors at school believed in me, because now we're getting into the weeds of it. But my dance teacher growing up was really fantastic, and she gave me a solid base of technique. And in part, she was just kind of telling the truth. She always said, like, I can't guarantee this is going to work for you. I can't guarantee you're going to get a job.
Well, yeah, no one can.
Right. But as like a 12-year-old who was dreaming of being like a professional dancer, I think I needed to hear like, you can do this. And I never did. And so
yeah,
fast forward senior year of college, hearing like, you can do this. Like, I believe in you. You can do it. Right. I needed to hear that. But yeah, it took that whole year out of school, that first year after I graduated, to kind of come to terms a little bit more with like, oh, the reality that I dreamed up in my head is not, it's like based in dream or fantasy. But I will say now, 2020 hindsight, the reality that I'm living is better than anything I could have asked for or imagined. Like,
right.
The people I'm getting to work for, the places I've gotten to go, the venues I've gotten to dance in. Like, if I had made, I often say to people, like, if I had made a bucket list, things are getting checked off right and left without me having to, like, I don't know, grab it. You know, it's just like falling into my hands, and I feel very, very fortunate in that way. So
that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it sounds like to me that the expectation was met in a way that you could not have understood. Mm. And your fear was based in a belief that if it didn't work out the way you wanted it to specifically, that would lead to your being miserable and maybe even the end of your existence as a person. Because it's like, it has to go down this road because you are not able to see any of the other roads. Mm-hmm. I think you make such a wonderful point, and I'm actually so glad that I'm having this conversation with you today. I talked to a lovely young woman named ROZA yesterday. I don't know if you know her. She's from Russia.
Yeah, I overlapped ROZA at school.
She told a story about growing up in Russia and taking a dance class because her friend needed a friend to go with her because she wanted to go. But ROZA was like, I don't want to dance. Who gives a shit? Whatever. She went anyway.
Yeah.
She started going. And at one point, somebody got cut or whatever, and she didn't. Mm-hmm. Even though she wasn't as into it as everybody else. But this other girl got cut and she got to stay. And then a teacher, when she was like 11 years old, just like you said you were 12. She's 11, and this teacher says, kind of in passing, but said it. Like, you know, the only reason you're still here is because your legs are so long.
Wow.
We talked for quite a bit. I encourage you to listen to the episode. I think you'll really like it.
Yeah.
We've talked for quite a bit about the choice she was given in that moment as a very small child. And both choices are so legitimate. They're such fair choices. Yeah. First of all, because it's a child, but because you can understand how either one would happen. And the first choice is the one that ROZA picked, which was to say, fuck you. I'll show you I fucking belong here.
Yeah.
Like I'm not, okay, fine. That's how you see me. I'm going to change that. Took it as a challenge. That was choice one. The second choice, which is just as legitimate, is to go home and tell your mom, man, fuck this. I don't want to do this anymore. I didn't even want to do it in the first place. Okay. And now this lady's mean to me. I don't want to do, and she's telling me I'm not even good. And I mean, she knows. So put all this together. Can I go do archery or I don't know, some other activity? Like, I hate this. This sucks. Yeah. And no one would blame that kid. I wouldn't, because it's like it's not like it was your passion and then you got discouraged and you quit. She didn't even want to be there. It ended up becoming her fucking passion because she was so determined to prove this lady wrong.
Right.
We got into a great discussion about how both the story you just told and the story I just retold of hers, because hers will probably come out before yours, is that, but I encourage everyone to go listen to it. They're both legitimate ways to educate and inspire. Support and tough love in the right doses are both legit. And it depends on the person. I don't think you would have had the same reaction in that moment that she had. You might have still been like, I'm going to keep dancing. You might not have quit, but it might have hurt you a little bit more deeply to hear from a teacher at that age. And imagine too, let's be honest, as Americans for a second, let's imagine this Russian dance teacher talking to an 11-year-old, you know, the only reason that, you know, or in Russian. But my point being, damn, that would shut me down, you know? And I can remember experiences at that age, middle school, where someone said something and I had one way or the other. Both are so legit. And the key is, I think, and a great educator, and I'm so glad that you've had some at multiple times, is to quickly, the sign of the best educator is how quickly they assess what each student needs in order to be the best version of themselves. Because here you were wobbly in here because no one had been like, you got this. You're great. Don't give up. That's what you needed. And that doesn't make you weak, and it doesn't make her strong, that she needed a little tap on the back of the calf faster. You know, she needed encouragement that way. I naively, I've been an educator many times. I naively have kind of pulled of like, what is the right method? And there fucking is no right method. It all depends on the kid.
Right.
And it's so cool to hear your story in contrast to hers, because here you are both. I've talked to her yesterday. Both of you are like in your disposition and talking to me now are just still so passionate. You so fucking want to do this thing so bad. And you're both so sweet and nice, kind people that don't seem to have had it kicked out of you or had your ass kissed so much that it's out of you, whatever. Either way, you're both, it seemingly, and I'm naive, but seemingly from these two conversations I've had, right where the fuck you need to be. Your words.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the biggest lessons I'm learning just this week in my own life, talking to you wonderful people, is like, there's something there about what do we all need? And here's my point, and this is why I'm bringing this back to you. I want your thoughts on this. It doesn't end with childhood.
Right.
We're still different in what we need to be encouraged, to be supported, to be inspired. Right. And it's like, I think the best, and this is why I think the fucking pickle thing is why we all connect. Because for real, you and I just met, we don't know each other. People can wind the tape back an hour. I just met you, but there's a vibe that we understand each other to a degree because we both understand we all need a different thing. And we are far more invested in figuring out what that is for ourselves and others than condemning, oh, you don't say the word water right. Meet me where I am.
Right. Yeah.
Does that resonate with you?
No, it does. It does. As you were talking about the idea of like the best educators being the ones who identify what their students need, it made me think of, there's this, there's like a Bible verse that talks about teachers being judged more harshly because they're the ones that are leading and they have,
do you know the verse?
I don't know it. I don't know the reference.
The vibe. Yeah. Just give me the summation.
Yeah. The idea is that like, you are the one providing direction, providing answers, and you can mislead people. And so there's a weight of responsibility. And I think that sometimes in terms of education, both like in the academic sphere, but also in the arts realm, we don't prioritize, or like, sometimes it feels like anybody can be a teacher. And it's like, that is just not true.
And it's an entirely different skill set than whatever it is you're teaching. Knowing that and knowing how to teach are two different things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. Yeah. Yep. You could be a wonderful dancer or a wonderful actor and not be able to teach, not be able to communicate that to someone else or imbue knowledge to somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sure. You can also, and this is the argument that School of the Arts has made for like 60 years, less now that they've become more of a university, but for a very long time, their argument was, and also you can spend a lifetime doing the art and know how to teach without getting a classical academic teaching education. Like you may not need to go to school for it, but if in your professional life, for example, you've been choreographing and teaching other dancers for fucking 20 years, we will hear you out that you have the skill set and potentially are the right person to be an educator in this field. And I think that's a fair thing to meet in the middle of, because I don't want all my professors or all my educators in my whole journey in education to be like stuffy academic people.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there is something, I mean, there's something wonderful about things getting codified. But it also can be limiting. And some of the best teachers I've had at school and after school are people that don't have a master's degree. Their master's degree was their experience.
I don't have a bachelor's degree because I went to, this is true. I'm a college arts diploma kid. I'm one of the last people to graduate from School of the Arts without the fucking actual bachelor's thing, because I didn't go to academics. I just took arts classes. And suck it if they don't think I know how to, like, at this point. And I have like a substantial amount of experience, like actually teaching like K through 12 and different levels and like all this different stuff. So I would make the argument that I'm in that second camp, but at the same time, there's definitely still plenty of people who, like I said, went to public high school and then went and did 4 years of theater at like whatever state school, which is fine. And now they're teaching these high schoolers, but they have nothing to tell the high schoolers except, you know, what you could do is what I did. And then just keep doing this loop. They don't know how to be like, well, this is how an agent might work if you wanted to be a professional actor or a manager, or maybe you want to be a professional dancer and you need to understand how companies have evolved and things like there's none of that knowledge because they don't go out and get it. They just stay in that local cycle of go to the college, go to the high school, go to the college, go to the high school. Like, it's fascinating.
It is. It definitely is. Yeah. I hope that's something that the school doesn't lose in its kind of becoming more of like a university and inside the UNC system, because
I think it's inevitable.
It's just such
I don't think it'll. It is. But I think here's what I think is beautiful about this. You know, we've had a huge, and I gotta be careful because this is like a separate podcast episode entirely that I'd love to talk to people about, but it's a bigger thing. I really think the big arc of education that we're experiencing right now is this huge transitional thing. You know, we're hitting the bubble of how all these colleges are just like so ridiculously priced that kids are for the first generation, like not going. They're like, I'm not going to do that because why would I sign up for that debt when I'm looking at your graduation rate? And I'm like, oh, Jesus. You know, so they're getting wise to that. The information is far more global. We just had a fucking pandemic teach us that you can basically learn every degree you'd like to learn from your computer, because we proved that. So I think a lot of things are going to pop. I really would love for UNCSA as a classic institution to be like ahead of the curve and get, but they won't because they're too bogged down by having drank the Kool-Aid of UNC and gotten in on that because they had no choice because that's who had their money. So it's like they won't. And so unfortunately, what I believe will happen is the concept of the focused arts conservatory, which is way older than this American university problem that's like 40 years old, will survive via something else. We will start to see these arts conservatories pop up that are like, come here for a 2 or 3 year program. It's deeply immersive. It's a quarter the cost of a university. And you know what? You don't get a degree, but guess what? No one gives a shit. So come on, they'll get what I got.
Yeah.
They'll get the actual arts diploma and the little certificate that no one ever asks for. and it will cost them less money and they'll get the thing they want. But that'll take time for that to get built in the vacuum of what places like UNCSA are no longer providing. That's just my belief.
Yeah, no. And what you just said about like, no one cares about the piece of paper. It's so true. No one cares that I got a BFA. They care that I went to NCSA.
Yeah. And it depends on which door you go to. Right.
Yeah.
And there are some places who are going to be like, we don't care where you went. Do you have the paper? Mm-hmm. Like there are places like that. There is my situation where no one cares where I went, period. They don't care if I went to school, where I went to school, if I got a degree. I could have dropped out of high school. In the business I'm in, no one gives a fuck at all. Mm-hmm. That's fine. I didn't go there for that. I went there for the skill set. And that is the thing that I wish more and more people would understand about what you're supposed to do after high school. Go learn how to do something.
Right.
And don't worry about if it's like, and even with all due respect, because I totally understand why you felt the way that you did. I felt the way that you did as well. It is a stepping stone thing that they sell to us. First this, then this, then this. And they're tied together by this theme of you're going to study a thing and it's going to lead to a job and that's going to be a career. And then it's going to be, that is an illusion. It is a foregone thing that no longer, at a time it existed.
Yeah,
it did.
Exactly.
It's like the dance company gig. Like so many other gigs, it's changed, and we have to be honest with ourselves. So don't trip about having a career at 22. First of all, that has always been a little crazy. Yeah. Second of all, just learn how to do something. Learn how to do something helpful that you like. Put those two things together. Learn it's helpful and you like to do it. Learn how to be pretty good at it. Then go figure it out. That's all you have to do.
Right. Yeah. One of the most prolific, talented dance people that I've had the honor and pleasure of working with never went to college.
Right.
And he is incredible. Truly incredible.
And I'm sure you've also met people who are up there with that person who did go to college. Exactly. So it's like wherever you learn it. If you've got the money to go to an out-of-state school, or your family's got something set aside, or you got whatever, or you're so poor by the American system that they let you go for free, go. But if you don't, just go learn how to do it. It's so many different places to do it. And and here's the brilliance of this, Mariah. They don't have to be in the situation that you were in going, am I going to be one of the many or the few? Because they're not worried about it like that. It's not about that. It's about, did I learn some shit while I was here? That's what I should be nervous about. Fuck, I'm almost out of time. Did I learn everything? Rather than, oh no, what if I'm not set for life at 22 years old?
Yeah.
Which when you're 22, I get it. But like, you need adults in your life to be like you said, you're going to be fine.
Right. Yeah.
Breathe.
I think related to that, there's also one thing I will credit the school with is that they celebrate people's successes, both in the arts world and outside of it. Like people who continue on to go and, work for NASCAR, or whatever, NASA, like they celebrate all of that too, or become Miss America. Like they celebrate success in all the ways that it comes. So that's one thing. And then the second thing that was what needed to happen for me was not that I succeeded, that I got a job. It was that I needed to find the essence of my value as a person. And,
absolutely.
And like my identity outside of dancing, because growing up, I didn't necessarily always say like first thing, like I'm a dancer. I said lots of other things about myself, including that. And then I went to school and I got like so zeroed in on this one thing, which was great, but it almost took like going through the pandemic and not being able to do the thing I wanted to be doing as a job for me to like get shaken back out of it and be like, you're a lot more than pointed feet or flex feet,
I love that. I love that you had that experience. And I think that maybe that's part of what we need to figure out about how to emerge from a deeply focused program and make sure that people walk away from that, not having their entire identity tied to themselves as an artist or whatever you learned. But I'll say this too. And I think this is, I mean, you can speak to this far more than I can. I grew up in a kind of semi intense Christian household. I am self-described atheist now, but my wife also grew up Christian. I think she still, definitely has a faithful relationship. But for myself, one of the things I love about Christianity, and there are many things I really like about it. I think, and there are other religions that do this well too. But if you're really listening to that message, if you're really getting to the heart of what that New Testament seems to fucking be about, it's like, what is your role in this? All this, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is for you, and whether God, heaven, but let's talk about right now. And that to me is one of my favorite lessons from the stories of Christ are like the action taken in the name of people who are alive right now. Because a lot of religions get overly concerned about what happens after you die, in my opinion. And that's one of the things that turns me off about a lot of them. Because I'm like, we got a lot of shit to do right now. I'm not getting wrapped up about what happens after I die, especially when I got no proof anything's going to happen. So I'm going to dedicate my time to is this. Right. And I love that about a lot of Christ stories, which is like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
What are you going to do
you're
about
on a
this?
mission.
Yeah, something. And whether it's based on religion or something is kind of irrelevant to my point. More of a historical call of like, it makes sense to me why so many people would be a part of this thing that as even doesn't connect with me in the same way that it did when I was a kid. But I get it because especially like I look at people like Pennsylvania, speaking of the Amish, man. That's the lesson they take from that fucking book. They're like, we owe each other action to help each other out and do better and be better and make life better for each other. Cause life is fucking hard for everybody at some point. Right. And so like, why wouldn't you focus on what you do? And it can feel kind of selfish, I think, to be an artist. Sometimes you can be kind of like, man, my role in all this is I'm going to twirl around on the floor for a little while. I mean, you're at your most cynical. That's what you're saying to yourself, right? Yeah. And it's so, it's like, how's that fucking help anybody? Of course, that's how you feel. Because the work of being an artist, first of all, is a lifelong pursuit. And the notion is that the same reason you need to dance is the reason why you need to dance for everybody. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like the reason in your heart that you're called to participate in this, that essence is the same essence that is the motivation for why dance is your contribution to the society. It's not your only contribution as you've done recently, but it is a part of that same thing because that expression is not something everybody can do. And especially when you start engaging with, I mean, you're from New York. People fucking just yell what they feel a lot, right? Yes. But that's not the world. That's New York. That's a few places. A lot of the world, and I work on a TV show that we deal with a lot of international cultures. Most of the world is pretty fucking conservative. Most of the world does not talk about how they feel. Most of the world is not transparent and emotionally intelligent and articulate about their feelings and all that kind of stuff. And you know who helps them get through their difficult lives? The people who are sensitive, who are tapped into those things. They don't know how to tell their wife what they're feeling, but they can listen to a song or watch a dance and at least access it.
Right. Yeah.
That's fucking huge.
It is.
That's not selfish.
I think it's a reorienting of our perspective on what we do from something that can feel self-serving to something that is at its essence others serving. Like I have whatever talents or gifts that I have that I've tried to steward in my life.
I love that word so much.
Right? Such a good
I really do.
I
don't use it enough. I really like it.
I think I stole it from Trent, actually. I think I heard him use it once in college.
That sounds like some shit he would say. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, so you're stewarding this in order to serve your community or your world in some way. And whether that's just to bring people's eyes out of themselves, if it's to offer something beautiful, if it's to help somebody feel like there is something intrinsic in the arts that you can say is just about me, myself, and I, but we do it on a stage or project it as a film for other people.
Right.
And it can be self-serving if you're using it to kind of
course,
gain like notoriety back.
And can it not be both? Can it not be both things at the same time? We can walk and chew gum, right? One of my favorite definitions of art is actually Pete Holmes is one of my favorite comedians. And he says art is highly sensitive people reporting back to the rest of the group what life is like for them.
That's a great definition.
Isn't that awesome?
That is awesome.
I'm going to say it again for anyone listening, just because it is a little wordy. Art is highly sensitive people reporting back to the rest of the group what life is like for them. That is an incredibly valuable thing. Yeah. If you look at it at face value, of course, it seems selfish because even in that phrasing, it is unsolicited. I didn't say the rest of the group requests us to go out and make a thing and bring it back and let them know how we feel. No, we are just reporting back to the group unsolicited. By the way, the world is insane for us in these particular ways. We experience in these really intense ways. And I have brought it back for you to see how far it can go. A horror movie is a great example, right?
Yeah.
It is a bunch of people who got together without anyone asking them usually. Especially, I know horror writers. Ain't nobody asking them to do that. They have to do that shit. It's like in their head. They got to get it out. Yeah, no, absolutely not. They go make this thing and they bring it back to the rest of us. And they go, hey, it could be this bad.
Yeah.
Oh shit, it's not that bad. Like, and it makes us all feel a little safer because there's like no one with the knife
actively
anywhere.
You. Yeah. The zombies aren't actually banging down the door.
And it's at first you're like, what a selfish thing. You just want to see blood and guts. It's like, yeah, but when you watch a scary movie, it heightens your experience. And then when it's over, you go back and now you have perspective because you went over here and you came back. You went to North Carolina. Now you're back in Long Island.
Yeah, it's perspective building. Yeah, for sure. I guess all art is on some level. Building out your perspective, widening the lens.
Otherwise, you're just making entertainment. And I don't have a problem with that because I make my living off entertainment. I love entertainment. Do not get me wrong. But I think that to me, and everything's subjective. Like I said, I don't believe really in right and wrong words because everybody uses language differently. I still believe in that an hour later. But it is it is the difference for me in that specificity between art and entertainment, which is like the art does seek to do some version of that. We want to push the perspective, a boundary, explore.
Yeah, you want it to engage still.
Yeah, and it's not a crime if art makes you uncomfortable. You know, it's almost the point of it. Entertainment is not really supposed to make you uncomfortable. It's not supposed to make you feel weird. It's not supposed to leave you walking away going, oh, I didn't know that. Like, otherwise you encountered something artistic, something that had some value. But like, you know, reality TV, I paid my bills with it many a week. It was never really my thing before. Some of it I think verges on art, but mostly it's entertainment. You just show up every week, you have a good time. You're not really meant to be challenged too much. And it's just fun. And ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. But the art should do something.
Push you.
Anything. Yeah. I don't care what it is.
Yeah. What's that quote? There's some art definition again that's like art is meant to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have heard that. I do not know who that is. I love that.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
but it was a brain seed in there somewhere. I held on to it. But yeah.
I have had a wonderful time chatting with you. I don't know if this has been bad for you. You can tell me when we cut if it was awful, but I had a good time.
No, it's been great. Yeah, for sure.
Wonderful. Well, love to have you back on, catch up, see how it's going. It seems like you got a lot of plates spinning right now.
Yeah.
Do you have anything coming up or, anything kind of on the horizon, or is it really just grinding the jigsaw schedule until it is like, until there's less pieces?
Yeah. The jigsaw schedule is definitely a thing. It's an awesome thing. I love to be working on lots of different projects. Keeps it interesting, keeps you growing, keeps challenging you. I have a show coming up in the very top of December, and then kind of on a break around the holidays. I feel like it's probably true for lots of art people, but like things just seem to slow
most
way
of
down.
the art and entertainment industry shuts down because we rely on attention, and it is a time of year when you cannot get anyone's attention.
Right. Yeah. So, and then in January, I start back up with some projects and showings, and there's this thing called APAP, which is like basically a festival for presenters to see art and dancers and then decide if they want to bring them to their theaters. So that's like a crazy thing right at the beginning of the new year. And I've got that.
So you're kind of prepping for that.
Yeah. So I've got things on the horizon, working on a film project right now that's been really exciting. Just like super content, and always, there's always something more that you hope for. But in the meantime, while I'm hoping for more things, I'm super content and really happy with what I've got going on. So,
well, you're either convincingly full of shit or a very happy person.
I am a very content, joy-filled person.
That's wonderful.
Especially right now. So yeah.
Well, you tell Kyle the motorboater I said hello, and this was a wonderful, wonderful time. We'll talk again soon.
Yes, sounds good.